ESVN.
Stone cold lock of the century. All week.
Dan from the internet, thank you as always.
That's us when we talk about Zach Wilson. Our heads just explode.
I mean, close to it. So last week was a pretty good week for me. I'm still mad about the fact that the Bucks did not cover that spread. It was like 17-10 for eons and eons, and I was convinced that okay, the Bucks are going to pull this off, but I mean, there are enormous flaws with that team that include Todd Bowles being arguably the most conservative coach in the entire NFL and not willing his team to a victory in that way. So I'm a little pissed about that. But the Giants backdoor covered on Thanksgiving. 49ers
I knew you'd be happy about that.
I was. Won 13-0, so they covered that 9.5-point spread. But Bradley, man, Patriots lost by a touchdown.
Thanksgiving was a tough day.
Yeah. Wait, did they lose by a touchdown? Yes, right?
Yeah. At the end of it, yeah.
Plus 2.5, didn't get it. Titans lost by 4 points, didn't get that one. Seahawks minus 3.5. Then that was a gut punch in overtime where Josh Jacobs ran for that 80-yard touchdown.
Yeah, that was also rather brutal for me.
So now we're close here. 17-8-1 for me. 18-15-1 and 3 for Bradley. So in terms of the win column, I'm only one game behind you at this point. We're going to have to figure out how to calculate those pushes. I'm not exactly sure how that works. Maybe people can leave some suggestions in the comment section if you're more math-minded than
if anybody has
me.
an idea as to how we could tabulate the pushes to like make it still competitive for us, and how to use them in a win-loss fashion. I was thinking maybe like half a point or something, or how like hockey does ties or whatever. But how do the hockey points? How do the ties factor into the standings at the end of it?
It's 1 point but there's no tie. It's essentially if you go to overtime, you automatically get 1 point, right. And if you win in overtime or a shootout, you get 2, which is shootouts are the dumbest thing in the world. But that it's kind of just an artificial way for them to make it closer. I mean, we'll figure something out. I don't know if pushes should count as a half point. I mean, I feel like that should be negligible.
I think they should definitely count as a half point.
Well, and I wonder why. This is why we need impartial people in the comments to let us know. But, all right, this is what we have for this week coming up. Here we go. Boom. All right. Speaking of the Jets, I'm going to start there. I do think that I think that the Jets are going to lose in Minnesota. That's my sense of it. What?
I'm just.
There's a weird line there.
Yeah, I don't really know what that is.
Forget it.
It's okay. I just remember the last person who picked their favorite team, and then the other New York team. 1-3.
Well,
just a little analytics for you.
Those are hard stats. So, as I was saying earlier when we were talking about the Jets, like Mike White, when he came in last year, he threw for over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Bengals. It was like, wow, who's this Mike White? And then he got benched a few weeks later. After throwing 4 interceptions. I don't know if that'll be the case against the Vikings, who do not have a good pass defense by any stretch of the imagination. But the Bears probably right now have the worst defense in the NFL, with injuries included. So I do think that the Vikings will at least push here, win by a field goal at home. I just think that the offense is much better than that of what the Bears with Trevor Siemian. I mean, of course. So in terms of like I don't see this game as being low scoring. I think it will be a bit more high scoring, but I definitely trust the Vikings defense to or Vikings offense, I should say, to get one up on the Jets at home, because I think it's going to be really hard for them to stop Justin Jefferson and that crew. I just trust the Vikings at home here. I don't have that much more to add to it, and I mean I don't think Mike White is all that. So I think that maybe veteran players like Patrick Peterson in the secondary will be able to get a pick or 2 off of him.
I'm curious. as to how Sauce Gardner and Justin Jefferson, how that matchup will be, because usually they have been playing man usually with Sauce on the number one guy, or at least like the most kind of potent offensive weapon, like with Mark Andrews in Week 1 and against the Ravens, and then Jamar Chase against the Bengals, and so I'm curious how that'll manifest.
I mean,
itself. If that'll be like who gets the best of that matchup.
Sauce is good, but is very good, but Jefferson's generational. So
That's the thing though, is just I wonder if he can keep pace with that guy.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be a really interesting matchup. But I would guess that Kevin O'Connell is going to try to find some breakers to get him open anyway.
Oh yeah.
Especially if like at some point the Jets have to like they can't play man to man the whole time. You know what I mean? So I just really do think that it's the Vikings are going to win this one. What do you have next, Bradley?
So I have the Jacksonville Jaguars
in Detroit.
+1 over the Lions, because frankly, a little surprised by the Jaguars after the game that they played, after the drive that Trevor Lawrence had to win that game last week. Who were I forgot who they played. That's how
the Ravens.
Yes, the Ravens. Which honestly, like I think the Ravens defense is really beat up, and we've been talking about it all year that like they've been struggling with injuries, and the secondary is pretty thin outside of Chuck Clark and Marcus Peters. Occasionally having a highlight play. But he kind of sliced them up in the clutch to win last week, and I was just surprised to see that the Jaguars were 1-point dogs against the Lions. When I mean the Lions had a convincing win against the Giants, of course, but their defense, I still have very little hope in their defense to really keep up with any of these fast receivers that the Jags have, and Lawrence, that I think now is I kind of feel like that Lawrence is playing well, and that there's going to be some consistency here. And I think if he's going to have another big game, he'll have it against a bad defense.
Well, that was like to not be vulgar, a nut drop game against the Ravens. I mean, huge
totally.
Throws on fourth down,
like hard, like difficult intermediate throws in the end zone for the 2-point conversion as well. So I just think like, if there's gonna be another team that he can maybe exploit their defense, it would probably be either like the Lions or the Bears or maybe the Cardinals, depending on.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Peterson is going to be all over him with like building up his confidence after a performance like that, I feel like. So I like that pick by you. The Lions scare me a little because they've been playing so well as of late. But I do think the Jaguars are a more talented team.
Right. I agree. I just think it's a matter of them maximizing. If guys can play like they did, I mean, like Zay Jones and Marvin Jones, I mean, on their own, not like amazing receivers. I just think had really good games, and the connections with Lawrence looked great, and he's just his footwork and the intermediate throws, which are his real calling cards, looked great. I just think if it can persist into next week, that.
Marvin Jones revenge game, or DJ Chark revenge game.
Oh yeah, oh my God, that's
hard
right.
to know. They've swapped receivers, and
it's like a civil war.
It's also the war between the first overall and second overall pick in the draft last year. Both teams look a lot better, I would say, or not a lot better, but definitely significantly improved. Looks like maybe the Lions were right about Hutchinson versus Travon Walker. I like Travon Walker a lot.
Yeah, Hutchinson is highlight reel play. He's a great player, and I think we'll see him even like develop and open up more once they have actual more NFL talent.
Yeah, I think Marvin Jones. But Aiden Hutchinson is the only defensive rookie right now that's closing in on Sauce for
because
defensive rookie of the year.
He's had some really impressive pass breakups and interceptions, and like really
he intercepted Daniel Jones in coverage, and he read it, dropped back
perfectly,
and really athletic play.
That was the one close to the end zone, right?
No, it wasn't.
It
was the first interception he threw was in Giants territory, so they went and scored a touchdown like right after, and that was kind of
there was one he had that
when
was like
things
a
got dicey.
3-yard throw or something, and I was like, that's crazy that he even had like the heads up to like catch that ball.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, he's
so
awesome.
lanky.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
But he's one guy, and I think that's for now. So I think the Jags have a chance. I think I'm just surprised that they were dogs here.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a pick 'em, right?
Yeah.
I think in a neutral field, Jaguars would be favored.
Right.
So
as you know, I only really go close to pick 'em games anyway.
Oh yeah, that's your
My
MO.
highest line is like 3.5. So I'll touch.
Well, I'll touch one a little bit bigger here. Don't clip that. Titans plus 4.5 in Philadelphia. Now, I mean, this is more about my faith in the Titans to keep it close than it is a knock on the Eagles, who looked excellent against the Packers. But the Titans are a smarter defense, and they're not going to say completely leave 50-yard chunks of the field open to exploitation by Jalen Hurts' legs. I mean, he had 2 massive runs within the first maybe half hour of the game, and the Titans are a much more disciplined defense than the Packers. I don't see that happening. The Titans are also top of the league in run DVOA defense, and I anticipate them being able to maybe clog the middle, so the play action or I should say the run pass options don't work as effectively. Once they're, I think, able to take the middle of the field away for some of the run game for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is going to have to drop back and pass. And I think that once you make a team that the Titans are facing more one-dimensional, they pounce the Titans. So I could see the Titans winning this game. I think the Eagles probably still will win, but I think it'll be very close. And the Titans also on the defensive side of things, the Eagles on the defensive side of things, the Eagles have struggled against the run this year, and Jordan Davis might be coming back, but he's been dealing with an ankle, and it's a little up in the air. I know he's been practicing. I'm not sure if he will have a full snap count. He might be a bit more limited in this game. Regardless, though, even with like the new additions like Sue and Linval Joseph, former Giant.
Yes.
Forever love
Forgot
him.
about that one when we talked about Sue, but they're really just adding.
But even with them, like,
right.
Sue looks good, even though he's wearing some ugly ass number, like 74, 76. Bizarre.
Now the single digit numbers on the defensive side is like very strange.
I don't like that either, but I just like Sue. I just was not used to seeing him in some completely generic defensive number. But regardless, I just could see them having trouble stopping Derrick Henry, and then that opens things up for a Treylon Burks who is playing much better than the start of the year, kind of finding his groove. Austin Hooper has emerged as a fairly reliable tight end for the Tennessee Titans, and I just feel like they're going to be pissed about how they lost to the Bengals, and they should be able to lock down the AFC South. So I feel like they're not going to miss this opportunity to at least play hard. Plus, I saw this stat. This might be the one I feel best about, frankly. Vrabel is 21-7 against the spread with 3 or more points against them when they're getting 3 or more points. 21-7. So I think it's a good matchup.
Point.
I think Mike Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the NFL. I think they're going to keep it close at the very least.
No, I can see that. I'm a Titans guy.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, with good reason, right? Now you got the Bengals plus 1.5 versus Kansas City, but Bengals are at home.
Yeah, I took this is my boldest pick for sure. The other two I feel like are a little safer. Mm-hmm. But I took the Bengals 1.5 plus 1.5 over the Chiefs at home. Partially, I certainly would not have taken this at all in Arrowhead. There's no way. I just think I am taking a chance on my thinking that the Bengals are hitting their stride and that they're improving significantly and that they've found a recipe that's working for them without Jamar Chase. And this Bengals team has beaten the Chiefs in a very, famously has beaten the Chiefs in a very high stakes game before. Lou Anarumo, their defensive coordinator, really did scheme up a very interesting game plan for Mahomes in the AFC Championship game last year. Obviously, I think I'm certain that Andy Reid has thought about that game extensively and has thought about counters to those counters, of course. But I just think that finding this groove with the line playing better, the receivers kind of getting that, exhibiting that next man up mentality and playing really well. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst, and Burrow, being Joe Burrow now with a better offensive line combined with the tenacity on defense. I think that the Bengals could shock people and take this one.
I mean, I feel like people are missing how good the Bengals defense has been at all three levels, right?
Oh yeah,
they're just so solid.
Oh, totally.
They have professionals at every.
And DJ Reader is back, their nose tackle, and he's just been a monster for them and blocking the run and just creating havoc in the pocket. So I feel good about where their defense is, despite them not necessarily having besides maybe Trey Hendrickson, they don't have there's not a Myles Garrett or a guy like a Nick Bosa or anything like that on that team, and yet they just play really really sound impressive team defense, kind of like the Titans almost. So they just have
true. I mean, yeah. And it's amazing too because I find the offensive coaching to be lacking given the talent that they have
exactly.
on the Bengals. But on the defensive side, they're so well coached.
Totally. It's like the
sound.
mirror. Lou Anarumo and Zach Taylor are like the mirror of each other. He gets the most out of his players, and Zach Taylor sometimes somehow gets less out of his players than he should be getting.
I mean, and I just don't necessarily credit Zach Taylor for a lot of their recent success.
I agree.
To me, it's Burrow's a
Burrow might as well be coach.
Yeah. So I can't say I could do that if I were you. I mean, I can't say that I'd pick against the Chiefs.
But I gotta gain some ground back. So I'm taking some big swings.
Yeah. All right. Well, my final pick here is I struggled with this one, but frankly, when I looked at all the lines, I did also consider taking the Chargers +1 in Las Vegas, but I had to do the Giants at home. The Giants have been and I know that this team is different and people have caught on a little bit, but they have been quite disrespected by Vegas for much of the year. They've been covering spreads. They have been underdogs in a lot of games. For the life of me, I don't really understand why they are underdogs at home against the Washington Commanders. It would mean on a neutral field that they're 4-point underdogs. And that to me, with Evan Neal coming back, with Azeez Ojulari coming back on the defensive side of the ball, I would say at the very least this is a pick'em game. But the Giants are at home. As I mentioned, right tackle Evan Neal coming back, which will be huge, especially if Chase Young is able to play this week. Azeez Ojulari will be coming back off the edge. Now, Heineke has been good against the blitz. He's scrappy. He gets out of the pocket. But the Giants might not have to blitz as much with Ojulari coming back. Because then you have Kayvon on one end, Azeez on the other. They can do some more 4-man pressures as opposed to 5, or bring the safety up for a blitz. So the Giants are still incredibly banged up, and I know that Darius Slayton, who's their only receiving option, has an illness in practice today. I hope it's not COVID. I hope he just has one of the bugs that's going around. But the Giants do have some extra rest after playing on Thanksgiving. I just think at home, I think they're a better coached team than the Commanders. I think that their offensive scheme is a bit more creative. Heineke, while being fun, I mean, he threw for under 200 yards last game. He's a great guy to root for. Is he a better quarterback than Daniel Jones? I do not think so, in my opinion. So I think the Giants are going to be able to hold their own, definitely, with the Commanders, and the Commanders' win streak comes to an end here, and then they go on bye, and then they play the Giants again. We'll see at home if that changes anything, but that's my sense of this game.
Yeah, and I also just do wonder how much of the Commanders have been playing better. That this the past few weeks they're over 500, I think, or maybe at 500, depending on. But I like the defense. The defense has been playing well, but I agree with you. Heineke has that. He's ballsy, but he's ballsy with like not as much talent to like back up the ballsiness. So like he does like have a like there's a way I think to really exploit that and like make him make mistakes and like
And Wink can do that.
Yeah, and I was just saying I think of if there's anyone who can kind of maybe befuddle a young confident quarterback like that, it could be a Wink Martindale scheme.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I could see it for sure.
All right, lastly here, you got the Chargers.
Yeah, which
Chargers.
is like, in spite my Super Bowl pick, the LA Chargers. It's looking great, aging like fine cheese.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe they can get it together. Herbert finally looks like himself again.
Yeah, and but it's all the problems that we've talked about all year, which is just like the receiving core, it's just, but at the same time it's gotten to the point where it's like we need, despite all of those caveats, they need to perform regardless, I think, and to justify all of our belief in Herbert at some point. But so I took the Chargers +1 over the Raiders. Again, a little surprised. I know Josh Jacobs has been playing much better. Look, he's 300 yards on the ground last week against Seattle. Really looking like he's looking just like a fantastic running back there, but I still think this will be close. I think I don't think this Raiders defense, even in spite of us, like me and you both really being big fans of Patrick Graham from his days with the Giants, they just have not looked, Max Crosby aside, super up to the task of like being kind of a cohesive unit. And they have not played super well, this whole year. Crosby is, I think, a genuine talent, and I think he's a really good player. But he's one guy, and I'm sure he can maybe on this kind of beat up Chargers line get some pressure. But I think Herbert is smart enough and quick enough and savvy enough to make some
carve up this defense.
Yeah, and to put pressure on them, but. My only real concern, like I said, is probably the line, just because he's been able to get some good solid action out of like guys like Josh Palmer and DeAndre Carter recently. Guys who are obviously not super heralded, receivers, and especially without with very limited reps from Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, but. He was really able to do a lot with them last week, so maybe that could carry over. It's more just I think if this beat up and kind of very novice line can stay up in front of him, because at this point they're playing this guy like Foster Sarrell at left tackle or left guard, I can't remember which, because I think Rashawn Slater got injured. Obviously he's out for the season, and then I think Slater's replacement got injured. So it just they are just like their line is like a ghost ship right now. So we'll see how that goes. But I just think broadly they're more talented, and maybe and Herbert can maybe kind of show that he can be an X factor like that in games like this.
Yeah, I mean,
and also the run defense. Sorry, I'm sure you're gonna say that too. Is like that's probably my other primary concern is like this
if
run
Josh
defense
Jacobs
is famously bad.
Right,
so
right.
If another Jacobs performance happens like this, I'll regret this pick for sure.
I mean, but it could just come back down to whose quarterback is better. And Herbert, I feel like showed like okay, he is playing at a very high level at this point. The rib injury was affecting him.
I agree.
He broke off a few more runs, and you saw his athletic ability again, where he's a little less afraid to run with those.
You definitely saw the shiftiness. You definitely saw the shiftiness more against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I saw they put up some graphic of Kyler Murray standing next to Justin Herbert, and it was like height comparison.
Oh my god!
Justin Herbert 6'6", Kyler Murray 5'10". It's like we know he's taller than Kyler Murray.
We get it. We can see that.
We can see that. Thank you so much, CBS. I think that's where the game is being broadcast. But anyway, so those are our locks for the weekend.